Okay, so in our previous video, we talked about situations like this, where we had rational exponents, meaning exponents that were fractions. And if you recall, if that's the case, we broke it apart into the root and the power. So we took the root first, which is in the denominator, and then we took the power of whatever the base was. Well, today we're going to look at negative rational exponents. What happens if we have an exponent that's a fraction, but it's also negative? Now, there is multiple ways that you could do this. Now, I'm going to show you what I think is the easiest. I've been doing this long enough to know that there's some ways that are easier than others, and there's multiple ways to get to the same answer. This is my personal preference. I'm not going to show multiple ways to do it, because then what happens is people get confused and they get them all mixed up. So I'm just going to always stick to this one way. Now, if you're interested in finding the other ways to do this, you can always look in the book, and they'll show you each of these methods. But one of the methods is this way, where we're going to build off of what we did yesterday. Remember yesterday we took the root and then we applied the power? Well, we're going to do it in that same order. So I'm going to take this 16 over 25 to the negative 3/4 power. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take and start by applying the root, which in this case would be the 4th root. And then I'm going to apply the power, which would be the 3rd power. But then I'm going to tack onto that the negative. So I write this as a -1. So starting out with the 4th root, I would take the 4th root of 16 and the 4th root of 625, meaning what times itself 4 times is 16 and what times itself 4 times is 625. Well, the 4th root of 16 is 2 and the 4th root of 625 is 5. So now I took the 4th root, so I'm going to move on to take it to the 3rd power and then apply my -1 exponent. So when I've taken cube everything, take it to the 3rd power, 2 cubed is 8, and 5 cubed is 125. So now that we've cubed it, now that's left is just my -1 exponent. Now at this point you may know what to do, but in case if you didn't know, remember that this -1 applies to both the 8 and the 25. So let's take the scenic route to get to our answer right now instead of the direct route, because I want you to see why we get the answer we do. So this -1 applies to both the 8 and the 125. Remember, the deal with negative exponents is in order to make it positive, we take and move it. If it's in the numerator, to make that exponent positive, we'd move it down to the denominator. If it's in the denominator, to make it positive, we're going to move it up to the numerator. So in other words, our answer here would be 125 to the first, which is 125 over 8. So in essence, remember what a negative exponent is we're going to end up taking the reciprocal of our base. So the base in this case is 8 over 125. The reciprocal of that is 125 over 8. And that's our final answer. So again, here's what you need to remember. We're going to apply the root. Then we're going to apply the power. Then we're going to apply the negative. We're always going to do it in that order. The root, the power, then the negative. So let's look at another example. Here we have 27 over 1,000 being raised to the -2/3 power. Again, I'm going to break this up into the root, then the power, then the negative. So it's going to be 27 divided by 1,000. First we apply the root, then we apply the power, then we apply the negative. So the cubed root of 27 is 3. The cubed root of 1,000 is 10. So we're done with the cubed root, so now I'm going to square it and then apply the negative. I'm going to square each of these. 3 squared is 9. 10 squared is 100. And now we apply the negative. So our answer would be, we take the reciprocal of this, would be 100 over 9. And that would be your answer. Now for the purpose of this video, we're not going to be looking at the story problems for right now. So if you go on to Moodle and you print out the worksheet, we're going to look at some of the problems that are on that worksheet, or you can just follow along here. So on that worksheet, one of the problems is it's written like this for 1D, in section 1, letter D. We have 100 to the -3/2 power, and then an 81 to the -3/4 power. The fact that they're right next to each other tells me that we're going to be multiplying. So I'm going to multiply these. But before I do that, I want to simplify each of these parts. So I'm going to take 100 to the negative 3 halves power and simplify that first. Again, we're going to take and break this apart by the root. So this will be the second root to the power. So it's going to be cubed. And then our negative. So the second root, or the square root of 100, is 10. And now we're going to apply the power, which in this case it was cubed. So 10 cubed is 1,000. And then we're going to apply our negative. In this case, remember we take the reciprocal of the base. The base in this case is 1,000, so the reciprocal of that is 1 over 1,000. And that would be your answer for the first part. It's not our final answer, so I'll hold off on circling it. Next, we're going to simplify 81 to the negative 3/4. Well, again, we're going to break this apart into the root. So this is the fourth root. Then the power, it's cubed, and then the negative. So the fourth root of 81 is 3, because 3 times itself, 4 times is 81. Then we're going to apply the power. 3 cubed is 27. And then we're going to apply the negative. 27 to the negative first power is 1 over 27. Now remember, this tells us that we're multiplying these together, so I'm going to take 1 divided by 1,000 times 1 divided by 27, which gives me 1 over 27,000. That would be your final answer. Let's look at another one. Let's look at letter K here. This is still under section 1 on that worksheet. So this tells me to take 4 times 16 to the negative 3/4 power. A note about multiplying is we have to follow order of operations. Order of operations, remember, tells you to take care of exponents before multiplying. So I can't multiply 4 times 16 together. I'd be breaking that order of operations. So I have to first simplify this 16 to the negative 3/4. So break it apart into the root, the power, and then the negative. So the fourth root of 16 is 2, and then I have 2 cubed. Oops. I'm going to take that and then the negative. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so 2 cubed is 8, and now we apply the negative. So this would be 1/8. Again, that's not my final answer. All I've done is I've just simplified this. So now instead of 4 times 16 to the negative 3/4 power, it's 4 times 1/8. And 4 times 1/8, if I look at this as being 4 over 1, 4 times 1 is 4, 1 times 8 is 8. So 4/8 reduces to 1/2. So that would be your answer, 1/2 for letter K. And again, let's just review how to do one of these if you have a base that's a fraction. We break it apart into the root, the power, then the negative. So the root in this case would be the second root, raise the third power, and then we apply the negative. So the second root of each of these would be 5 over 7. Now we're going to apply the power, which is 3, and then the negative. So this is each of these are going to be cubed. So 5 cubed is 125. 7 cubed is 343. Whoops. And now we apply the negative, so your answer would be 343 over 125. Okay, so in that section A through L, those are the ones we're going to look at there. Now let's look at in section 2, letter B. Now a note about negatives. We only move something if it has a negative exponent. If the base is negative, it stays right where it's at. So negative 20 just means that this whole fraction is negative. It's a negative 20 over 4 as far as the first part's concerned. I can't move the 20 to the denominator to try to make it positive. That only works with negative exponents because it's not proper to have a negative exponent. It's okay to have a negative number. You've known about that for years. But negative exponents are not okay. So what we need to do here is we're going to move this y to the 1/2 into the denominator to make it positive. And this y to the negative 3/4, that's going to move to the numerator to make it positive. So if I rewrite that, it's negative 20x y to the 3/4 over 4x cubed y to the 1/2. Now I can simplify this. So 20 over 4, that simplifies to be 5 over 1. So this will be negative 5 over 1, or just negative 5 in our numerator. The x's, this x takes out an x from the denominator, leaving us with x squared in the denominator. Now the the y's, remember if the bases are the same, we can subtract the exponents. So 3/4 minus 1/2, in order to do that I have to change these to have common denominators, so I'm going to change the 1/2 to be 2/4. So now 3/4 minus 2/4 is 1/4. The fact that it's a positive 1/4 tells me it's going to stay in the numerator. So that would be your answer for 2B. So when you look at your worksheets, 2A and then C and D will all be kind of similar to this one. Now let's look at 3D. 3D, this is where we're going to solve this equation. We could do this without a calculator. I'm going to start by, I want to get my P by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 9. So I end up with P to the negative 1/3 power equals 5. Well, now I want to get rid of that negative, I want to get rid of this exponent from the P, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal in this case would be negative 3 over 1, or negative 3. So now I'm left with P equals 5 to the negative 1/3 power. Well, to do that, I want to make that exponent positive, so I put it in the denominator. And 5 cubed is 125. So that tells me that P equals 1 over 125. And that would be your answer for 3D. So you would do the third section there like that. Okay, so hopefully you have a better understanding now of what to do when you're dealing with negative exponents, so you can continue to complete that worksheet for lesson 7-8. So good luck.